Today I'm joined by Forrest Galanti.
All right, we are almost live. Well, technically we are live, but how do you feel, bro? This is good?
Yeah, feeling
Yeah.
good.
Hell yeah.
Should I top off my refreshment before we begin?
For real. I know we served our drinks and then it just took me so long to set up that you're basically done with your drink.
I don't think it was even a matter of like how long it took you to set up per se.
Mm-hmm.
More like me just chugging this shit down. Like, just
Are you
drinking
nervous or
it.
what?
No, I wouldn't say nervous. I'm excited. I have nerves.
Well, anyways, before we get into it, if you notice a difference in the camera angle or just the quality in general, unfortunately, I did not have access to the other two cameras. Those other two were my brother's. So until I can save up enough money to get two more, or if any of you guys want to donate to this cause,
Cash App is going to be
for
right
real.
here.
Hopefully, it doesn't throw things off too much, but we're just rolling with what we got. This is the third episode of the Most Vulnerable Player podcast. And today I'm sitting with none other than my best friend, Brett Wydra. Also, my brother. We've known each other since we were 5 years old, playing on the same basketball team that my older brother coached.
Coach Haas, shout out.
Yes, sir. What does it feel like with the headphones on and actually, because I mean, we conversate all the time, but What does it feel like? What's the difference?
Well, I mean, obviously it's out of the norm. Like we won't normally sit down with a headset
lights
on,
in front of us.
mic in front of it. Yeah, it's a little bizarre at first, but it's not bad per se. Like I feel like I already kind of got used to it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Once you get that drink flowing, dog.
For sure, that's the key. That's why I'm almost done. Yeah.
By the way, I have a twisted tea in my hand. What are you drinking on?
It's a Proper 12 and Coke Zero. Shout out Proper 12. I need you to sponsor me.
Proper 12 or Howlerhead? I was gonna say, bro, I think it's Howlerhead. So I released the second podcast with my cousin Fonzie earlier this week. I think it did pretty well. It took me a long ass time to edit because I was having some audio issues. If you're not familiar with like basically editing and stuff, at least for podcast, how it works is, especially if you have the footage from the podcast, when you're editing, you take the footage from basically the recording, the microphones, and you sync it up using the camera audio from the camera from the audio from the camera. And usually in Final Cut, there's like an option where you can sync up the two audios, so it literally like it matches up everything, and you can just go and just start basically just choosing the angles you want from the different cameras. But for whatever reason, this software wasn't working, and the mics that I was using, so these are completely different mics. This is a completely different recording system I'm using. The first mics I plugged into my laptop. They were USB mics, and I don't know if you noticed in the last episode, they kept this scratching sound every so often would just like come out, and it sounded like super ugly, and it was pissing me off. But I tried my best. Like, so some of the parts I had to cut out, and then I literally had to go in like throughout the whole podcast and just sync up the words to like the mouth movement, bro. So it was like, it took me a long time, but it was worth it. And I think I think it went really well. Got some pretty good feedback on it. Got some messages that felt really good, man, just to see that it is just even from the first episode or the second episode that people are finding it helpful. I know I got a couple messages saying like I relate to a lot of the things you were saying, and like I think one of them I think I was talking specifically about Fonzie, how you don't have many people, especially like men, that come in nowadays like talk about this type of stuff. So I think it's good, man. I think it's good that I'm happy with how it's going, and like I said, I genuinely enjoy just doing this and having conversations. And then I guess if it continues to grow, that's just a byproduct of things.
For sure. And props to you for setting this all up, bro. Like,
thanks,
the organization behind this man flew me in to town, put me up in a hotel at the Four Seasons here.
Yes, sir. I got to.
Nah, but really, like, everything from the setup and all the decoration, the lighting, I was really like, that's one thing earlier when you're like, oh, were you kind of nervous? It's not really nervous. I was just more like wowed and amazed by how much you really put into all this. And you could definitely tell by watching the finished product. Like, that video, well, both episodes were great. But obviously, last episode being the first here in your own studio, it was super easy to watch. Like, and I say that because there are podcasts or little shows that, I mean, you enjoy what they're talking about and what's being said, but the way that it's put together is just real cut and dry, and it's kind of hard to sit there and listen to or watch sometimes. But no, like, the first 2 episodes, but specifically the second one, he being here, was real enjoyable and easy to watch for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bro. That really means a lot for sure. I sometimes forget to like look at like I think I've always been like just like I try to work hard, and sometimes I just forget to like just sit back and realize like, damn, like I did put a lot of effort into this, and like really good to look back on and what you've done and just be like, damn, like I'm not where I want to be, but it's like you're trying and like you're doing your best,
So here's a question for you then. Being that you have videos up on your YouTube channel as well as the podcasts, how much do you go back and rewatch your product?
The old videos?
Like, just in general, like old videos, or for example the podcast that you've been putting out, like how much do you go back and watch through the whole thing over and over again to see, like, do you study yourself?
So to answer your question, I feel like with the podcast, I do watch pretty often because, not often, but I've watched them more than my other videos. The videos I put out in the past, so I've been doing YouTube for like 3 years. The videos that I've put out, you know what? I actually do not watch my videos after, like, I watch them a bunch, obviously, before I release them, and then I'll watch them a couple times when they're out. But actually, personally, I hate going back and watching my old videos because, like, not even just from like I think it's just from a creative perspective where, like, wow, that was terrible. just because, like, I've seen the improvement I made, and like I feel like I'm much better. So when I go back and see it, I like cringe. I'm just like, dude, I can't believe I put that out. But like, it's cool to see because you see like the improvement throughout the time I've been doing it. But yeah, I really do not go back and watch those videos. Sometimes, like the ones I've traveled, sometimes I do, and those are kind of fun to watch because I think the cool thing about having a YouTube channel, or just not even a YouTube channel, but making videos and like vlogs and stuff, you go back and rewatch, like, and it really puts you in that mindset, and like it reminds you of certain memories, and like I'll be watching something, and sometimes even though like in the video something like bad happened, I'll look back and like I laugh at those type of things now. So it's just like it's really cool to have those type of like memories like put on camera and stuff.
I agree, and I'll admit that I go back and watch that Vegas video that you made, like, at least once a month, bro. Like, I have to go back and watch it just because it was such a fun time, and you documented it so well. And if y'all haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on my boy's page.
Link right here. No.
But no, it's a good watch for sure. Like, just because it's almost like a different perspective. Like, we lived through it, obviously, but what you captured and the way that you put it together, it's completely different perspective on what we were living and what we did.
Because you're like in it, and then you go back and watch it, and it's just like, sometimes it even gives me a perspective of like, because in real life, sometimes in reality, things can affect you in certain ways. Like, for example, we look back at certain times, like at the Vegas trip, and like there were certain moments where we were like fucking pissed at each other, like just because you're drinking, it's fucking long weekend, you're tired, and like you're hungover, and like when you're with your boys, like sometimes you guys clash, and like it's funny. But then you look back at the video, and like those little things, like you remind yourself, and it's like, dude, that was fun as hell. Like like the things we were worried about at that time were like,
and it was funny because we were all clashing over like the smallest, dumbest things, shit. But it was just like you said, the combination of alcohol and then like us being pent up together for
it's a lot of testosterone in the room, man.
For sure. That's a good way of putting it.
But yeah, man, we got reintroduced to each other when we played on the same, we went to the same high school. We kind of lost connection during middle school. We played against each other in football and basketball.
One of them rivals, boy.
For real, the Northeast rivals. Nolan versus Terrace Hills.
Yes, sir. I think it's funny, looking back on it, how at the time it seemed serious. Like, at least, I don't know if it was the coaches that made it seem that way or if we were just all competitive, but that seemed like a legit rivalry, even though we're middle schoolers.
Yeah, no, literally, at that time, it was everything.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons I wanted Brett on, man, was he's like Fonzie. He's very well-spoken. And I think one of the things that I think we've touched on before, I think one of the reasons we really vibed together and we connected from the start was I felt like we were both mature at a very young age. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you said, I feel like that is the main reason that we were able to connect when we did, is because we saw that common maturity in each other and we're able to talk about certain things that we might not have been able to talk about with other people at our age, or we preferred talking about certain things with each other because of that maturity. And
where do you think yours, that in your eyes, why do you think you kind of matured quicker than maybe usual?
I think there's a couple factors. I think one would be my parents and the way I was raised, obviously the most obvious answer. But also I would have to say having a younger brother. I have two younger brothers, little backstory. I have a younger brother who's 17. His name's Craig. And my youngest brother, Kellen, who's 10. Craig was born when I was 6. And so I remember when he was born, it kind of added, I don't want to say pressure, but it kind of added responsibility that wasn't really my responsibility, but I felt like it was, to lead him down the right path and show him the right way to carry himself, the right way to behave. At least what I thought was the right way as a 6-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like that definitely helped me mature quickly at a young age. But again, my parents, the way that they raised me, I mean, props to them, because my mom always talks about it, and I always thought she was full of it, but she always says she never talked baby talk to me when I was little. And I was like, bullshit. Everybody talks baby talk, right? Mm-hmm. But she ended up pulling out some old home videos the other day, and we were watching them. And sure enough, I was like, she's talking to me like a grown-up, bro.
Yeah, like Fonzie. And I didn't plan this out, I promise. I'm not just picking on these people with divorced parents. But your parents did get divorced. Also around the same time that Fonzie's did.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about that time?
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of interesting because I always, at least in my head, I always figured that I didn't take my parents' divorce as hard as some people take their parents' divorce, which I'm not in any way trying to sound like I'm tougher than anybody else, or like it's just the circumstances. Like my parents, at least from my perspective as a kid, throughout the process of the divorce, were pretty civil amongst each other.
I think that has a lot to do with it, right?
For sure. Like once they actually started splitting up, there wasn't much animosity or like big arguments or fights going on. So it was a pretty chill and relaxed environment for us, which I give them credit for, because I know probably going through a divorce with somebody isn't the easiest thing to do, and keep your composure and shit, which they didn't always do, don't get me wrong, but for the most part it was pretty relaxed. Mm-hmm. So it always kind of felt not natural, but it didn't feel like this huge burden that I was going through.
And it's just probably the way it was handled.
For sure, yeah. And all props to my parents and family for helping out with that, because that could have definitely been a lot worse than it was by far. And
how did that? I feel like that played a big part in why you matured as well. Is
so
just you're exposed to at that age. Like I feel like not that you're sheltered at like 11, 12 years old, but you're not fully exposed to like reality. At least some people.
For sure.
But
yeah, like I was going into middle school when my parents got divorced, so it was definitely a rocky time in anybody's life, pretty much. But
so yeah, when that happens, I feel like you are exposed to a little bit of like the real world. So like
for sure.
Yeah.
And you learn certain things about your parents maybe that you wouldn't if they were still together. I'm lucky and I feel blessed that led to me being maybe a little more mature at my age, rather than sending me in the opposite direction and like leading to me being traumatized or like going through like a little depression or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it turned out perfectly almost for the situation, you know? Again, like you said, the younger sibling. Obviously, when parents go through divorce, they're not both there all the time like they once were. So we did live with my mom for the most part. We did get to see my dad a lot, but during the week when it was business time, I guess you could say, going to school and all that, we were mostly with my mom. And so at that young age, I didn't think of it as my brother's going to be missing out on necessarily like a father type figure for those the times that we were with just my mom. I thought of it more as like he didn't get to really experience those memories in that time of his parents being together the way that I did. You know, I had 11 years of that to where he was 5 years old.
I probably remember when your parents were together, like, because that's when we were, that's when we would hang out and stuff.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure you remember coming over to the crib and stuff. So there was that. I mean, just basically leading my little brother, grabbing his hand and trying to show him what I thought was the right and wrong way to do stuff, which again, at this point, I'm 11 years old. So whatever I thought was right or wrong at that point.
But from that, I mean, not just then, but from that point on and to where you're at now.
Right. Yeah. It's continuous. It's not, it's never going to stop. It's just like, at this point, it's more of an instinct to be like, yo, like always looking out for him type deal. But I feel like I do that also with my friends and maybe not as extreme. Like,
I feel like now that you say it, I think out of our friend group, out of you, me, Fonzie, and James, sometimes Gabe, Caitlin as well, you are very, you're a voice of, I would say I'm a voice of reason as well, but I feel like you're very protective and like you try to, like you're very protective in a way. And I feel like that has to do with maybe you being an older sibling as well. I think that's what maybe comes from.
Are you referring to all the fights that I've almost gotten into when we go out or go on a cruise?
And I don't want to paint the picture that Brett's just like some like he's not like, obviously like he's humongous. I don't know who would want to fuck with him, but I think, like I said, it comes from a good place and he's just very protective of us, and like I've always noticed that, and I wonder if that's where it comes from. And
could be. That's a good point. I think it's, and that's the thing, like, I never, you could attest to this, I never go out, or we never go out and do stuff, and I'm never like, oh, I want to get into a fucking fight tonight, or I'm never like at the bar, I'm like, what the fuck is this dude looking at, you know? But it's more of like, yo, or like the other day when we were at, where were we, later, and not the other day, but it's been a while.
Later,
and that dude started bumping into everybody all crazy. Remember, he started putting his shoulder in everybody. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, and then like he hit Fonzie, and Fonzie went flying forward and almost spilled his drink and shit. And I was like, it's times like that where I feel the need to be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, not because I want to be a tough guy, not because like I like to fight or anything like that. It's just like you said, it's more of like a protective instinct almost to want to stick up for y'all. Like,
but I think that maturity is why we really connected in a way, because we always talked about just important thing, like the conversation we're having now. Like, this is not just a one-time thing. Like we conversate very often like this, and you really don't really think about the real importance of having like a friendship like this, and just having friends that really have the best interests of you at heart and surround you with just positivity, and that that like if you're ever straying in some way, or it's just being surrounded by those type of people. And
they're there to lend a hand and help pick you up or keep you from drifting too far.
Exactly. Yeah. And not many people, like we talk about this all the time, like we're so fortunate in the fact that we have each other like that and we have relationships like this, because not many people have that, bro. Like, especially in high school when we were growing up, like, it's unfortunate that people you grow up with and you see, and maybe you were not super close to, but like you were maybe acquaintances with, and like you see them, they just sometimes you get caught up with the wrong crowd, and not something you're really thinking about at the time, but
Right.
It ends up, I wouldn't go as far as to say it shapes your life and it sends you down the wrong path, but for some people it may.
Like it definitely alters your memories and the times that you have at that point, you know, the experiences that you have while you're going down that path, or and I mean, it very well could shape your future if you let it. And like you said, it's not necessarily something that you're thinking about at the time. Like, I don't know very many people in high school or middle school that are like, damn, I shouldn't have went and did that. Like, I'm going down a bad path. Or I'm going down, unless they have somebody there to be like, yo, what are you doing, you know?
And I feel like we definitely had each other to where, like, either way, I think we had a good head on our shoulders, but it's like we kind of, you unconsciously just take after the people that you're around, you know. I think that's super.
Like that saying you brought up earlier, it's like you hang out, or you're constantly around 4 businessmen, you become the 5th businessman, or you're constantly around 4 doctors, you become the 5th doctor, you know, in principle. Like,
if you hang around 5 dickheads, you end up being the 6th dickhead. I'm just kidding.
You're the 6th dickhead.
You played football almost like damn near your entire life. Why football? Like, what was it about football that?
Well, so I definitely played multiple sports growing up. Football is just the sport that I fell in love with, and I felt like.
And you played. You ended up playing college football as well.
I did, yeah. I played a year of college football at Eastern New Mexico. It's a Division II school in Portales.
Center,
yes, sir. And that was a good experience too. But I feel like playing multiple sports when I was younger, I really got to choose. Technically, I got to choose what I wanted to play. And football just seemed like the natural choice. I was around it my whole life with my pops watching football or going out and playing it in the street. I just feel like that was the sport that I was around most growing up. And even though I did play baseball and I loved baseball, I did play some basketball here and there. Football was always it for me. Like,
that boy had some post game for sure.
Let me grab them rebounds.
Let me set hard ass screens, boy.
Moving screens too.
Lowering the shoulder.
They ain't calling the moving screens at the rec.
Hell no. At Vets.
At Nolan Richardson gym, bro.
For real.
They ain't calling the moving screen. But football was always natural. I was always a bigger kid too, of course, so that helped. I remember when I first started, the first year I played flag football, and we weren't allowed to, as linemen, we weren't allowed to use our hands. Like, we had to keep our hands behind our back, which, looking at it now, I can see how it could teach footwork and stuff, but I'm like, oh, that's a crock of shit. Like,
yeah, it's stupid.
How the fuck you want me to block without my hands, bro? You know, like,
bro. Yeah, that should not make sense.
I mean, granted, it's flag, so they try and limit contact as much as possible.
He looks like it's so stupid.
But I could tell you what, the very next year I was in tackle, bro. I was like,
oh, I get to use hands now.
But it wasn't even me. It was my mom, bro, talking about, why can't you use your hands? Like, oh, I need to go play tackle. All right. So by 8 years old, that's what I think when we started playing tackle together. I didn't always love it the way that I grew to love it, but I never was like, I don't want to play anymore, you know? It was...
There's definitely days, though, where, like, the Little League, we're like, fuck, I don't want to go to practice,
I feel like any sport, it's a love-hate, bro. Yeah. It's a love-hate relationship with just about any sport. And anybody who tells you otherwise is full of shit, bro. Yeah. Like, you don't go every day talking about, I love this shit. And if you do, I want to meet you for real. I just feel like as I matured, got older, and then especially as I started going through puberty, getting a little more aggressive, that's when football really started getting fun for me, as an offensive lineman, especially. It's funny because we played football together obviously there was a gap in between when we went to different middle schools. But did you always feel it? Because you ended up being a badass basketball player. Like, he's being humble as shit. Like, this dude's a baller for real. But did you always feel like basketball was your first choice? Or was there a point where you felt like you wanted to play football more than you wanted to play basketball?
Looking back, I think for a while, I think basketball was always number one. But I felt like I could have been, for a while, I feel like I could have been better at football just because of...
Bro, you're raw, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's one, I didn't continue to play, but I think I could have been pretty good just because as far as my size, I was a pretty ideal size for football, especially if I would have gotten bigger. For basketball, I mean, I'm 6'4", which I mean, I would, at the next level, you see 6'4" point guards. Like, you rarely see a 6'4", like, even though I could handle the ball somewhat and like I played outside, it was still like, I was more like a 3 or a 4 position, and at the next level, like you're gonna be going up against dudes that are 6'7", 6'8". So in my head, I was like, okay, I think I can make it further in football. That was like my thinking early on.
Because if you're 6'4" as a receiver or tight end, bro,
yeah,
that's nice. Like,
yeah, so like that was my mindset, but I really grew out of love with football. I think like I really enjoyed freshman year, but my sophomore year was like honestly pretty shitty. Not even just in football, but just in general, like because of what was going on in football and like just my experience, it just kind of it affected other things. It was I'm not gonna blame it all on the coaches, but I think a lot of it had to do with just the program, and like ultimately I think I really love basketball, and it was a matter of wanting to devote my time because I feel like I'm a person that I really want to give 100% in what I'm most passionate about, and if I'm not doing that, it really affects me. Like I can think back to times not just about in football, but if I'm not giving 100% into what I know I want to do, I feel torn. And so that was kind of going on at that time, and that's what led me to...
Which sucks because it almost... I know what you're talking about, and it almost feels like you're not giving enough to either
exactly.
or.
So
like you're not committing enough to either sport, which I understand.
Yeah,
I understand
and
where you're coming from on that.
At that time, it was a big... Like, we talk about, like, how when you're at that age, like, sports is everything, you know, especially for athletes, but... It was a really tough decision because like you don't know how things are going to play out. So like in the moment I'm like, I love basketball, but am I making a wrong decision? Like just sticking to this one thing? Like what if I could end up being a really good football player? But I think it was the best decision I made because I mean, I love basketball, and from that literally I kept my word in saying like, if I'm going to give up football, I'm going to give everything I have into basketball, and like, I did that.
And you love basketball.
Yeah,
like I know that for a fact. Like you were a good football player, and you might have really enjoyed football, but you loved, like, you were married to that shit, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it was a good decision. Yeah, also,
I do. And talking about like sports and stuff, because we're both athletes, and we kind of, even though we're not athletes anymore, I feel like that has a big part in how we grew up and the type of people we ended up like growing into and stuff. How do you think, like, not necessarily sports, but just having something of that sort, like an outlet, how do you think that impacts like someone growing up?
I think it's absolutely imperative that you have something to do. Like I was thinking about it earlier. Actually, it's funny that you bring it up, but we have, especially when we're in school, we have those 8 hours a day, which when you're there seems like damn near the whole day, where you're just in school. And a lot of people think that you can get your social time and like all that you need from being at school. Well, that's bullshit, because most of the time you're at school, you're sitting at your desk.
And you're literally told not to socialize.
Not to talk, right? And so that was a big thing for me. Like, that's one of the things I attribute to being a little more social, is that time I got out at practice. But I think it's super important for kids to have something else to do besides just going to school and going home. Whether it be dance or art or whatever you're into, bro. It didn't have to be a sport. I mean, obviously that's the path that we were on.
Yeah.
We took the sports path, which I'm grateful for, because I feel like sports instilled, and you hear a lot about discipline. Like, people think it instilled.
That's what I was just thinking.
A lot of discipline, and it does. It does instill discipline. But more than anything, bro, I think sports really taught me to be social. Like, that was my one time a day, besides when I went home and got to talk to my mom or my little brother when he was born, that I got to socialize in the day.
Yeah, you formed some of your best friendships
and that's it right there, bro. Like, some of the strongest bonds you'll ever have come through. And again, it doesn't have to be sports. In our example, it is. But being involved in something with other people, like working towards, and in sports it's even better because you're working towards a common goal. So it teaches you at a young age how to work well with others also. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I attribute a lot of what I know today and what I am today to playing sports growing up.
Mm. And you were fortunate enough to play in college, and did you always want to do that? Play some sort of sports in college?
I did, bro. Yeah. Mostly football. Once I got to a certain age, I was like, I want to go as far as I can, like.
Was that actively in your mind when you were like, maybe like sophomore, junior year, you were like, I'm going to try to do whatever I can now?
For sure, yeah. And of course, knowing what I know now and looking back on it, I'm like, fuck, I could have done so much more, but.
As far as what?
Just mostly like getting my name out there, promoting myself to other colleges, or doing certain things on film that might have attracted a little more attention. Like, not that I didn't put out decent film, but like, I feel like there's like certain things that I know now that coaches would be looking for that I could have capitalized on, which is funny because that's some stuff that I'm trying to like teach my brother a little bit.
See, and that's how you, because I'm totally in the same way. I feel like anybody who plays sports, especially like at a pretty high level, it's like there's always going to be things you look back on, and it's like, even though you worked hard, it's like, damn, I should have fucking did this. I should have did that. Yeah. But it's like, I don't think, at least in my opinion, it's, you brought it up with your brother. It's like, that's what it's all about. You went through certain things, and someone before you went through certain things that they taught you. And you
hear that? I crawled so you could walk, motherfucker.
No, literally though, bro. Like, obviously, like, we all have our own path, right? But the path you took is, I mean, you did certain things, and like, look, you're passing that down to your little brother. If anything, that's even more important, like that you're passing it down to someone else, and it's like, sure. I think that's an.
That way, when he's in the league, he can take care of me.
Bro, just ride his coattails. That's what I'm doing with Asen right now, bro. Yeah. Fucking tailoring him, dog.
You better be in the league, you hear me?
For real. You ended up going to Eastern New Mexico. You signed to Eastern New Mexico to play college football. So take me through that experience, bro. What was that like?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was, I mean, obviously it being a dream of mine to play college ball. It was definitely awesome to be there. Now, I think it's definitely probably a different experience than being at a big, like, D1 school. But I was grateful for it nonetheless. It was cool to experience. I really enjoyed seeing the different level of competition and being a part of that for a little while. It's just a completely different animal. Like, the competition level between high school and college is night and day as far as who you have on your team. And I'm not talking down. We had a talented ass squad at Andrews, but other people who played college sports can attest to this. It's the best of the best are there. So
even if it's Division II, it's just like they're
and everybody's trying to prove a point constantly. Mm. And the thing about D2 is a lot of people have chips on their shoulders because they didn't go D1, or they were D1, came down, or they're trying to get up to D1. You have to work 10 times harder to get a starting job than you would have in high school most of the time. It was really cool because freshman year, pretty much the whole freshman class got redshirted. When you get redshirted at school, at a college, you don't have it doesn't count against your eligibility, but you don't play in any games that year. Or now I think it might be you could play up to 4 games and still be redshirted. Mm. But it's a year to get familiar with the system, work out, try and add speed or muscle or whatever, would benefit you in that way. But with that, we got the chill during game day, which was fun. We would always go tailgate for the home games.
Yeah.
And go watch the game, get all crazy shit
trashed.
And stumble into the stadium and watch the game at 19 years old. But
and you only played 1 year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there for one year.
Was it a hard decision for you? What was the ultimate decision of why you stopped playing?
So it really came down to almost like you choosing between basketball and football. At least at the time, it was me deciding whether I wanted to put my full energy and effort into my degree and getting my degree school or football. Because at the time, there was a lot of talk about players changing their degree so that they can have an easier time to play. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I came here to go to school. Mm-hmm. Playing football is just my ticket here. You know, like, I'm not going to sacrifice one for the other. And I don't think there's a huge chance I can make it to the NFL. So why am I going to dump all this energy and effort into playing football and get a bullshit degree? And then when I'm done,
have nothing.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So that was the thought process at the time. I wouldn't have been able to put in the energy and effort I needed to maximize my success in the field that I wanted to go into.
And was that a hard decision? Because I know there's a lot of... I mean, I had that decision. I didn't play college, but I faced a similar decision when I was deciding whether I wanted to play in college or just continue with academics. So I would kind of face that at the same crossroads, just a little earlier. Was that a hard decision for you? Because I feel like it is for a lot.
No, for sure. Yeah, difficult decision for sure.
Because you're kind of not labeled, but your whole life you're an athlete. Like you're a football player. You're like, people know me as a basketball player, like up to that point. So it's like an identity crisis.
And like
almost.
You touched on, I had been playing football damn near my whole life, like most of my life at that point. So it was tough a little bit to let go of. It helped that I thought at the time that I was doing it for the right reasons, which I mean, now I could have done it for the right reasons, maybe not, but I was okay with the decision after all. And I don't regret it, just because that opened the door for a lot of other interesting opportunities and a chance to go experience different things in different parts of the country. And so no, I mean, it was tough, but I definitely stand by my decision. If I had to make it again today, I'd probably make the same decision.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure through college you had a lot of it. I mean, are you still going to school, or what are your plans? What are you doing right now?
I want to. I'm bouncing between a few different options. I want to for sure get my degree, but I'm weighing out a few. I want to eventually get into mental health also. I want to be a sports psychologist, actually. That's like the end goal. I've always loved sports so much. I want to stay around sports, but I also want to be able to offer help in the best way that I think I could possibly can, and that's through psychology or mentally helping these athletes. So that's what I want to do ultimately.
Do college, I'm sure you had a lot of experiences that maybe forced you to grow up in certain ways, and I think that's what college does, right? Like, so what were maybe some experiences you had throughout college that you can remember that you learned something like from quickly, or like just in general, it was like maybe a wake up call? Or
I got into a little bit of trouble.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
It was during football season, towards the end of the season actually. And again, going back to, we'd all go and tailgate. So the drill was, we'd go tailgate before the game, go watch the game, and then after the game we would hit up whatever parties were going on. We practiced all week, went to school all week. It wasn't, so the weekends were our time to let loose and part. We didn't have to play in the game, so we just,
I mean, that's what's college.
Yeah. But college. So definitely didn't make some of the best decisions, but one time in particular, we had gone and tailgated, and we already had plans to hit up a party after the game. The game had just ended. We were like, the people aren't really going to start showing up yet. Like, let's go back to the dorm for a little while. And the dorms there had a strict. Well, it wasn't even just the dorms. It was the campus in general. A strict no alcohol policy, campus wide. Like, 21 and up or not.
That's
like
stupid.
Yeah, especially for college.
Yeah,
right?
what
Like,
the hell?
if I'm, I mean, I understand I was a minor and all, but well, not a minor, but I wasn't 21.
Yeah.
I wasn't of drinking age. My bad. We go back to the dorms, and my buddy Fish, shout out my boy Fish. He had a big Yeti cooler bag that we would keep all our alcohol in, and it was all accumulated from the tailgate. So there was like 2 big ass bottles of liquor. Like, we had gotten a 30-pack of beer, so it was probably like 20, maybe 15 beers left in the cooler bag. It was a big ass cooler bag, and it was in the back of his truck. And we went to the dorms, and I don't know what the thought process was, but we were like, we're not gonna leave this in the back of this truck because somebody could take it. So we're just gonna take it inside, and then when we go to the party, we'll bring it back and take it to the party. So,
and you want to have a few brewskis in the dorm.
yeah,
You know?
chill while we're waiting, have a couple of beers, keep the party going, you know.
Keep the blood flowing.
For sure, can't lose the buzz.
Yeah.
But
speaking of buzz, cheers.
But so we go up to the room, take the cooler to my room, and my roommate Jacob, and we go up to our room, and we're chilling, having a couple beers. It wasn't an uncommon thing for us to do, really. And for those of you that don't know, when you live in a dorm, there's RAs is what they're referred to.
Resident assistant or resident? Yeah.
I think it is resident assistants. They're basically like students that are the dorm police or the dorm snitches, I like to say. But they could be a real pain in the ass if you don't have a cool one. Which we just so happened to have 2 that weren't cool at all. And yeah, fuck them. To this day, you can run this fade. So we're in the room, and all 4 of us are in there. It's me, my roommate Jacob, our buddy Fish, and our buddy Hunter, who is Fish's roommate. And we're chilling, having a couple beers, and our buddy Hunter gets a call, and we're bumping music and shit. So he goes to step outside to take the call, and as I'm sitting on my bed, which is directly aligned with the door, and as he throws the door open to answer the call, the RA is standing right there in the hallway, bro. And we locked eyes, dog. As I was guzzling this beer, bro. I was down in this shit, and I look over, and I was like, "Fuck!" And the door shut, and so I was like, "All right, well."
Did you already know she's a fucking snitch?
Narc, yeah. So once I saw that, I was like, "Oh shit, something's gonna happen. Either she's gonna get the cops involved, or they're gonna come search the room themselves." So keep in mind, we have this big ass cooler bag full of liquor. So I started thinking right away, and I was like, "Fuck! Like, I need to do something. Like, I'm not just gonna have them walk in here and stumble upon this bag. Like, we're fucked." So Hunter, Jacob, and Fish, I was like, "Y'all go to Fish's room so we can get out of this room, get away from the issue. And I'm gonna stash this real quick."
So why did you take the initiative to why did you tell him to leave the room?
I was gonna be right behind them.
Oh, okay.
As soon as I got done stashing that, I was gonna go join them.
Okay.
But I was like, "Fuck it, it's our room. I'm just gonna."
So you just took the responsibility of
yeah, because at that point we were all pretty messed up.
So
I didn't really trust.
I would do the same.
No offense to anybody. Like, I just didn't really trust anybody else to get it done right.
Yeah. And are you panicking at this point, or
a little bit, bro? So to add to the story, we had a dab pen that we were all kind of passing around the whole night.
So you had that paranoia type shit.
So it was a double like. Not only were we pretty messed up from the alcohol, and this sounds so stupid. Like, nowadays, I'm like, "Fuck, what was I thinking?" You know. Mm-hmm. But not only did we have a good alcohol buzz going, but we were also smoking on that Zaza. so those of you that know,
bro,
the effects of that, yeah. There's a little bit of sense of paranoia that started creeping in once I knew that we were busted. So me trying to think quick on my feet while being intoxicated, I was like, well, I need to stash this somewhere. So the way it worked was, there was 2 people to a room, and 2 rooms would share a bathroom. So it would be technically 4 people to a bathroom. The bathroom was in between both rooms. So I got the cooler and I went and hid it under the sink in the bathroom. Because I was like, if they go through the trouble of finding it under the bathroom sink, then fuck it. We deserve to get whatever we get, right?
Yeah.
Or if not, I could always be like, oh, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
You might want to talk to them. And not to throw them under the bus, but they could say the same shit. Yeah. And then what are they going to do? So I throw that shit under the sink. And I have this dab pen on me. And so I start freaking out a little bit about that. I'm like, fuck.
Do you have a window?
Yeah, but it wasn't like, it wouldn't have been sufficient for me to toss it out, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, but, I mean, maybe that was a good idea, but I definitely wasn't thinking of that.
You were in the right state of mind.
No, not at all. That. So I put in my sock real quick, and I was wearing boots. So I was like, dude, searching the room, he's probably not going to pat me down, but if he does, he'd probably have to go through a lot to find it. I put in my sock. So I do that, and as soon as I get done stashing that and putting the pen in my sock, there's a knock on the door. I'm like, fuck. So I go look through the people, and sure enough, it's a cop. Yeah,
like a campus police, or like a actual.
No, it was like a city or town cop. Like I see him to the people. I'm like, fuck. But I'm like, okay, I hid just about everything. We should be good. So I open the door and I let him in. Which at that point, it's not like it was my house. It's not like I could have told them to fuck off. Like, you can't come in here. It's school property at the end of the day.
This is my house.
Right? I believe in my Second Amendment. You better stay out or you're going to catch a slug. No, just played. No, but he comes into the room and he's walking around checking shit out. And in my mind the whole time, I'm just like, fuck, don't pat me down. Like, I'm more worried at this point about the weed pen that I have in my sock. And so he starts looking around. He's searching up and down. Doesn't seem like he's finding shit, which he shouldn't. I'm like, all right, cool. Then he goes to my mini fridge, and there was 1 beer in the mini fridge. And he pulls it out, and he's like, is this yours?
It's like, cheers.
Yeah, go ahead. Take it down. And I was like, yeah, that's mine. I wanted to be like, oh, no, it's fucking RA's. He left him in here. I should have done that. Fuck. Yeah. The RA told me to hold on to him for him.
Real.
But I owned up to it. I was like, yeah, it's mine. Just in the back of my head, hoping he didn't find anything else, right? Yeah. So he's like, all right, let's go out in the hallway. And so we walk out into the hallway. And keep in mind, at this point, my roommate, Fish, and Hunter, they all went to the other room. So he's like, where's your roommate at? I was like, I don't know. Like, he took off a little while ago. I'm not sure where he went. I was trying to, like, at that point, I'm in trouble. But let me take it, you know, like, no sense in me pulling anybody else into it with me at that point. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm not sure where he went. You know, he took off a little while ago. He didn't tell me where he was going, blah, blah, blah. And so we're standing there, and he's writing up, like, the citation or whatever. And worst timing ever, bro. My roommate, Jacob, Fish, and Hunter all walked through the lobby as he's standing there writing my ticket. The fucking snitch ass RA, bro, is standing right there. That's him right there. That's his roommate. I was like, bruh. So, come on over here, son. So my roommate comes over and gives him the whole spiel too.
Bro, over 1 beer.
That's what they found, bro. 1 beer. Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
And I thought I MacGyvered that shit, bro. I was getting ready to fucking beat that shit, bro. I was like, phew. But then found it. So here we are. They write us a citation. We have to go to court. It was a whole thing, bro, for 1 beer. Which, I mean, I know technically it is illegal, but come on, we're in fucking college. Mm-hmm. Like, it's 1 beer.
Yeah.
We had to pay some fines or whatever, but we really just got community service, which was fucked up, bro. Like, not the fact that we got community service, but the way that we did our community service. We didn't take the best route, I don't think. So we got assigned a pretty decent amount of hours. So we were trying to we didn't have much free time, keep in mind. So we were student athletes. So practice and school took up the whole week. So we had to get this shit done on the weekends. So we found out that the zoo, the next town over in Clovis, which is about 20, 25 minutes away was offering community service hours, and you could work a whole day. So you work 8 hours at the zoo, they'll give you 8 hours of community service. So we're like, oh, fuck yeah, we can knock this shit out quick. And I'll never forget the first day we went. I was like, what the fuck are we doing here, bro? Like,
did it occur to you that you're going to pick up shit? Or?
Well, I mean, we knew that was a possibility.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, that wasn't the big deal, bro.
Yeah.
It was like, whatever. But we get there, bro, and they start showing us around a little bit. And then some shit happens. Like, we hear it on the radio. They start, like, panicking and shit. And it wasn't clear enough for us to understand what was going on. But we end up going back to, like, the main area, and they're like, there's a pipe burst. We got to find out where it's leaking from. So we need y'all. There's a plot of land that's like, I don't know, maybe like 20 feet long, 5 feet wide. Like, we need y'all to just start digging until you find where the leak is.
Like some holes type shit?
Like some holes type shit. So here we are, bro.
With some orange jumpsuits.
digging holes at this zoo, trying to find where this leak is coming from. And the people that work at that zoo aren't the brightest. And I don't know if that's hard to believe, but digging holes, that was just the first day. But then as they started getting more comfortable with us being around, we would go into like animal enclosures and shit.
Oh, shit.
Like, I remember they had some wildebeests. I don't know if you guys know what wildebeests are, but they're native of Africa, I'm pretty sure. But they're
hogs, no?
No, they're not hogs. I think they're more like deer, elk, but they're like fucking huge, like aggressive as fuck too. They were mean as fuck. Like, they would always charge the side of the enclosure and shit. So they ended up breaking us off. One of us would go with one of the zookeepers, and one of us would go with the other zookeeper. I put that in quotation because they were not trained zookeepers, bro. These were people off the street, and that were crazy enough to get into the fucking enclosures with these animals. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm gonna pull the truck in, and I need you to close the gate behind me. And I was like, so I'm going to be on foot in this fucking enclosure for like 10 seconds when these motherfuckers are charging on. All right, whatever. At that point, I'm just like, there's no talking sense into this motherfucker. Just let me do it. So he pulls in. I hop out the back of the truck, go to close the gate. And meanwhile, I look across the enclosure, and the fucking one wildebeest's eyes locked with mine. And I see him from across the way, and I'm like, fuck. So I swing the door shut real quick, and I jump in the truck. He's all, oh, you made it. Like, it was a surprise and shit. I was like, oh, you think I was going to get fucking murked out here or what? And we're in the truck. And he's all, yeah, that's Denton. I'm all, Denton? Like, the town in Texas? Like, yeah, Denton. He's like, no, we named him Denton because he rams everything, puts big old dents in it. And I was like, what the fuck?
You got to get the fuck out of here, bro.
I was like, is there any other place around here that offers community service, dog? 'Cause fuck this. And sure enough, bro, we're in the truck, and he's driving over to the where they keep their food and water so they can refill it. And as we're slowly cruising along, this motherfucker just runs over and clocks the truck. Boom. The truck, I swear to God, was up on two wheels for a second, bro. Like, I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? Oh, yeah, he's just playing around. I'm like, you sure, bro? He seems pretty pissed off. like, bro, I don't think he's playing, dog. So I'm like, fuck, at least we're in the truck, right? Oh. So he backs away, and then I see him like do a little circle, and again, fucking hauling ass, like full speed. Boom! Hits the fucking truck again. And I was like, God damn. He's like, yep, that's why we call him. Yep, that's why we call him Denton. I'm like, oh shit. Just give me the fuck out of here, dude. Give
me the fuck out of here, please.
For real. That shit was crazy. Oh, fuck. But nah, that was my experience at the Clovis Zoo. And shout out to those people. They're hardworking people.
But I'm sure you learned a valuable lesson from that time in your life.
Yeah. Again, hopefully that's a lesson that I had to learn that my...
Things didn't.
Yeah. Things didn't.
You ended up moving to North Carolina, I think with your uncle?
Yeah.
So what prompted you to go ahead and do that? So
they had been out there for a few years now. They lived here in El Paso. I grew up. It's funny, we actually grew up right next door to them, and so I was always real close with them. And they had moved up to North Carolina a few years back for my uncle's work. I had gone up to visit, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed being over there on the East Coast, and like it always kind of been in the back of my mind that I wanted to try. Or wanted to see more like what it was like up there for a while, go to school,
Just live elsewhere.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities school-wise there. I mean, as there is a lot of places, but that seemed to be a pretty promising situation, being able to stay with my uncle and aunt, and like it was completely different from El Paso. Like, and not to say that it was good and El Paso was bad, it was just different. I know a lot of people don't really get that opportunity to live elsewhere and check it out.
I feel like the fact that you, I know there's a lot of people that have aspirations to like to talk about moving and going elsewhere and stuff, but for whatever reason, it's hard to put into place and really actually go through with that. And the fact that you actually made it happen, and I think it just says a lot, because it's not. You'd think, oh, it's just like, oh, let me just move here, but for whatever reason, there's always that little like barrier people have to.
For sure, and it was tough because again, like, of course, I had family there, family who I was really close with and who I loved, but when it came to my social life outside of that,
yeah,
I didn't know anybody. I was by myself.
Yeah, that's far as hell. It's like
it's so different. If it almost feels like you're in a different country. Between here in El Paso and up there, was really the first place that I experienced, not myself, but I got to see, and I don't mean got to see like it was a good thing, but or enjoyable, but I really got to experience like legitimate racism for the first time.
Because being in El Paso, it's like we're so culturally diverse here. Well, there's a lot of Hispanics for sure.
It's not necessarily that we're so culturally diverse. It's just, I think, almost the opposite. Like, it's so much of just almost one race
that's true. Yeah,
that it's kind of. I
agree.
Yeah, but like to witness the animosity that I would see between a white and a black family at the grocery store that didn't even know each other.
But you can just feel.
But like you could feel it, and like you could see it. Like they give each other a weird look when they go by, type shit.
That's crazy.
And that's something again that I'm not used to. You know.
I mean, especially you do talk about how like El Paso is very Hispanic, but at the same time, where we grew up, like the Northeast, I feel like we're especially not used to saying that because it's very culturally diverse in the fact that like there's a lot of blacks, there's a lot of Mexicans, there's whites as well. It's like I feel like we got a taste of that, and so
for sure.
Seeing that, it was like, I'm sure it was very different for you seeing that.
Yeah, definitely. And it sucked. Like, I hated that shit. I was like, ugh, I don't want to feel that ever again.
For someone who's wanting to go out and explore and like just see how life is elsewhere, and maybe not so much in El Paso, but it could be if you live in El Paso, you're probably listening to this. But if someone wants to go ahead and do something similar and move somewhere, like what is advice you would give someone to like either mentally or like, yeah, just to help them in that, you know?
Honestly, just come up with a plan, where you want to go, what you want to do. Like a checklist, really. Say you want to move to Las Vegas. What do I need to do to be able to support myself there? Or, because I had family in North Carolina. That was a good option for me. But if not, I would have had to really figure out what I was going to do to support myself, how much money I would need to make to do that, which isn't really anything big. You can figure out the logistics out pretty easily if you really like.
We make it a bigger deal than it is.
No, for sure. Yeah. And I feel like getting out and experiencing a different place is something that everyone should do.
And once you do it, I feel like you can, you don't mind doing it again. And it's like, once you do it once, it's like, oh, like I can do this type thing.
When you grow up in one place and you live in one place your whole life, it's hard to understand that somewhere else could be so different. Like, and then the experiences that you might have other places or vacations or trips where you're there for a couple days, you might experience a few things, but you're really not going to get the full effect.
Mm-hmm. Did it help you realize how much you but how much you appreciate El Paso and your family?
For sure, yeah. No, not that, I'm not going to sit here and say that El Paso is my favorite place, but it's also not a shithole. You know, it's not like I hate El Paso. I love it. It's beautiful, but in its own little way. But it definitely, while I was gone, did make me realize what I took for granted here. Like, I took for granted, like, small shit, like the mountains. Like, yeah, there's mountains other places, but there's hardly anywhere else in the country, probably in the world, really, where the mountains look the way that they do here.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because El Paso is a huge city. It's a really big city, but it feels like a small town sometimes.
Bro.
Like, you be running into people you know all the time. And like, I don't know. I mean, it could be like that other places too.
It seems very unique, bro.
It is. It is.
And I don't know if it's because we live here.
I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a world traveler and I've experienced everywhere. But I have been to quite a few different places. And there really is nothing like El Paso.
And I think other people that have visited would attest to that as well.
Maybe not necessarily. Well, I guess you could say so by visiting. But if you were to spend like at least a week here, you'd for sure notice.
Where do you see yourself, if you think about it? I know some people, they live very much in the moment, but where do you see yourself in 10 years? Like, what do you see yourself doing? And if money and like, you weren't thinking about if you were going to fail and that wasn't really a factor, but what would you see yourself doing ideally?
Ideally, I'd be pursuing my career in sports psychology.
What is it about it that makes you passionate about that?
Well, it's a combination of being around sports and something that I've been around my whole life and I love so much. Being around that environment and those type of people still, and offering much needed help. Like you were talking about earlier, how not too many males are willing to open up and talk about like different things that happen in their life, whether it be good or bad, you know? And I feel like that stigma is even stronger, like on top of being a male for male athletes and female athletes as well. Like being like athletes themselves go through the same thing. Mm-hmm. Some perceive it as being weak if you open up about certain things, but I do feel like opening up and getting the right feedback and being able to let some things off your chest while also getting some guidance and help along the way mentally can really take some of these athletes' games to the next level.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
That's a good question.
Maybe something that is a lingering... I mean, we have the problems... We have problems that we face, like, on a daily basis, right? And, like, things we think about and the normal, like, everyday stressors and things like that. But is there something that is something that constantly still lingers where it's like it's something that you're worried about or something that you're actively always trying to face within yourself?
I feel like really just trying to become the best version of myself. Like, I know that there's tons of potential there, and if I put in the work, the sky's the limit. It's just a matter of like really making sure that I get myself to do that and to act on it rather than just thinking about it and like fantasizing it. Like, yeah, it's cool to sit here and talk about shit, but unless you actually put it into motion and do something to make that a reality, it's just going to be a thought and a dream. Knowing that it's a constant battle and that it's something that might not ever be done, but it's something that I constantly want to be working towards. And there are times where I know I'm not doing what I should be doing to be the best version of myself. And that could kind of get me in like, kind of mess with my head and give me like a little funk sometimes.
And I think you talk about how like you go through those little times where you know you're not doing what you should be doing. And it's like, what's crazy is that at least you have that feeling where it's like, yes, sometimes you aren't, but at least you know, like, I think everybody does have that where it's like, you know what you should be doing. It's just sometimes like you don't. And sometimes it goes a little too long without you doing that. But the fact that I think it's important for people to understand, like, everybody has that, whether it's like that compass or moral compass inside you where it's like, you know, if you're not doing what you should be doing to continue to progress yourself and your life, you know? And so like, and then you talking about how I kind of deal with the same thing too, bro. It's like, it's always a constant battle where am I doing what I can to reach my potential at the end of the day? It's like, because, and you touched on it as well, how, I mean, it's something I always think about where like everybody has like ideas and things they want to do and aspirations, but it's really like I always think about it is like, I never want to not act on that. I always think about that. Like, I think there's too many people, especially too many people with like talent and are intelligent, and they have like so much potential, but it's like for whatever reason, like it's a lot of it is just getting in your own way, you know. It's that I think that's all. I always think about that. Like, it's just really, if you learn to get out of your own way and just let yourself be, it's like, I think you just open up a new
level. You level up, yeah, for sure.
But that's the thing. It's a constant struggle, you know. It's the struggle of just like.
And that's the thing. Like, we can sit here all day and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be better at doing this," or "I'm gonna make sure I, get up and work towards my goal today." But then actually getting up and doing it is a completely different thing. Like, you have to
it's
make
different.
Sure
it's different when you're up at night saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," but then that 6 a.m. alarm hits and you're like,
"I don't want to get up." Right now. But then it's a vicious cycle. You don't get up in the morning and do what you need to do, then you're there again at night. Fuck. Yeah. I should have gotten better today. I should have did what I needed to do.
And think about that feeling and apply it to, imagine that goes on for 10, 15 years, bro. Like, because that happens to people, is like...
that's probably a big reason why some people would fall into depression.
Yeah.
That thought. Like...
Sometimes you don't even realize, like... And that's the importance of having people, like relationships like this, because let's just say you go too long with getting that cycle of just constantly getting in the way, and just, we can make excuses for ourselves sometimes. So it really takes someone to be like, either to be vocal about it to you, that like you're not doing all that you can to be the best version of yourself, or like you have so much more potential. Or that's also the importance of just naturally surrounding yourself with people that are on that same path and are gonna continue and push to push themselves, and you just follow that route. You follow along. I think I'm really glad to have like people like that, bro.
Hell yeah, me too, bro, for sure. Like,
just me being just clarifying, like, I'm not saying like our circle of friends is like, oh, it's better than everybody else, but it's like the fact that we've been so fortunate in the fact to be able to just relate to each other so well. It's like, it's crazy. What is something that you feel like you need more of in your life, or that you would want to implement more of?
I feel like I could definitely maximize my time better, and being a little more disciplined with that, like...
Yeah. The thing is also about that, like, we talk about improving and bettering ourselves, it's also can go too far. Like, I understand there's a whole culture built around like working hard and getting after it, and just continually progressing and moving forward onto the next goal. But at the same time, it's like, while I definitely believe you should work hard, I think where we live in this society now, where like it's gone too far in that direction, to where like people just feel like they're behind, when really they're just on their, like, you're on your own path, and you just figure out things out a different way, and like you learn certain things different ways. And don't get me wrong, there's times where people are lazy and such, but I definitely think we're this culture of like, I need to accomplish this, accomplish that, what's next. It's like, I think it breeds a lot of unhappiness, just from my personal experience, and also just people I talk to. It's like, I definitely feel like people feel that,
For sure. That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And it's crazy because it's not like, it's a very, not to say that people don't work hard elsewhere outside of the U.S., but it's a very thing that's very unique about the U.S., that culture of like, just that work culture,
But it's funny because I feel like there's a lot of statements made about, especially our generation now, not continuing that, or not wanting to better the country. Like
us being like lazy in a way?
Lazy, or also like we have it easy, or like...
Yeah. I think about that too, where like the older generations look at us and like see us doing like this fucking podcast for crying out loud. Like, you're like, what the like, but at the same time, if you go back, from what I understand, my dad's generation, his parents were probably saying the same exact thing about them and
shit
like
that they were doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like a constant. And we're gonna be saying the same shit about our kids, and it's like who knows what they're gonna be doing. It's really just like just changing of times. I think it's just the main difference between us and our older generations is that social media aspect, where it's like it's completely changed, bro. Whenever you're going through like a little rough patch, whether it's mentally, physically, or just in general, really, what is something that you turn to or that you think about that you can think of that has usually helped you get out of it, or that pushes you forward when things get tough?
It usually always falls back on family and friends. Like not wanting to let anyone down. Like not wanting to let my family down. Not wanting to let any of you guys down.
Really?
Like, yeah, bro. Like I feel like, especially with family, like I know that my upbringing required a lot from my parents, as many people's upbringing do. But I don't want that to be all for nothing or all for the bare minimum, you know? Like, same thing with my brother. I don't want my brother to grow up with or get older with me and see me be nothing of myself, you know? Like, I want to continue leading that good example. And that's another thing. I know it's hard because I know I don't always do that all the time. But that is something that I really want to strive to create. And not that he even needs it anymore at this age, but like we talked about earlier, I'm always going to be his older brother. Like, he's always going to have me to look for answers. And I want to be there to help him with that. I don't want to be like, oh, I don't know.
So you don't want to disappoint the people that love you?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's interesting.
Obviously, I want things for myself also, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to do what I want, what I love, and I want to be able to have a good... But, like, as far as, like, motivation goes, like... that shit scares me. Like, I don't want to be doing nothing with my life, and it's just something that I think about.
Yeah. Do you feel like those feelings are okay to have? Because we're very young.
I don't feel like it gets unhealthy to where I'm like, I better do this, or this, or I'm going to fail everybody.
Yeah.
But, like, when it comes time for me to need, like, when I need to really dig deep and tell myself that I need to push forward and get shit going, that's what I think of.
Mm-hmm. I would say I can relate to that in the fact it's not a lot of my mindset, but when you say like disappointing your loved one, not necessarily disappointing, but like
showing them that you didn't live up to your full potential, or showing them that you didn't live up to what
maybe they've put in so much time and effort and so much love into you,
and
to where
belief.
like, yeah, and if that's another word, like belief, and if you don't live up to that, then it's just kind of, and not that they put pressure on you, but it's just, yeah.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I don't want on my conscience, you know? Like, oh, you sacrificed all this for me. Well, thanks, but
yeah,
I'm good doing the bare minimum.
mm-hmm.
I'm good. And I'm not saying that there needs to be a rush to be successful or do these things.
Do you feel like in our generation people that feel like there is? Because
no doubt,
I
yeah,
do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
what does that come from?
Mostly social media, I think.
Just seeing other people's like
like there's examples of like us being 2 years into college and people already graduating and shit, or like, and then of course it's all on social media, which is cool. You should be proud, you know, you should show that happened, but like that could definitely be discouraging to people that are still going through it, that are still in the trenches, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, well, why didn't I get that done that quickly, or, you know? But
there's someone I always think about, it's comparison is the thief of joy, and that's like 100% the case. Like,
yeah, that's really great. I never heard that before.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy, and we do it unconsciously. Like, we see it and just like,
and that's the thing too. Talking about, I mean, social media. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and blame everything on social media.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of positives,
but there wasn't near as much comparison before social media, or back before they had that kind of technology, as there is now.
This is why I don't smoke weed anymore, because just in general, as I think about just questions about like life and just deep questions like that. So that's like my default mode. So you can imagine when I'm like high, I'm just like, it's too much, dude.
Hell yeah.
But why do you feel like in your eyes, whether it's like, I don't think you're a very religious person, but like why do you feel like we're here?
What makes you say that? No, I'm just kidding. Are you assuming?
Yeah, why are we here, and like what is the purpose of what we're doing? Like what's the meaning of this, if there is, to you, of life?
I honestly feel like, at least right now, from what I've gathered, most of the meaning of life right now is the experiences that you have in your life. Because at some point, whether there's an afterlife or not, you're not going to be able to experience those things anymore. You're not going to be able to create your own story. So I feel like it's really important for people, regardless of your faith, to really stop and enjoy things that are going on in their life. And I do it. I still to this day, with that philosophy, take so much for granted. But I've learned and gotten better at like really enjoying the little things, or like sometimes it's not the little things, sometimes it's big deals, but I still like try and enjoy them to the fullest. Like going on our trips, bro. Like we've taken multiple trips now and done some things that some people don't get to do in a lifetime, you know? And at the end of the day, that's what we're for sure going to be left with.
Our experiences. Before we wrap up, what is something that you want to leave? This show is about mental health and really just having conversations to, not just for the benefits of us, but for people can hear the things we talk about and maybe hopefully relate to them. So
Yeah.
especially from a mental health standpoint. So let's just say someone's going through a rough time. They're struggling through something, whether it's mentally, physically. I don't know. They're not sure what path to take in life. They're, I don't know. They're just struggling in some way. What is just like some words of advice or encouragement, or just anything you want to say?
I would say number one, never be afraid to express your feelings or let somebody know that you're struggling. People go through some crazy shit without even looking for help or somebody to talk to. And there's so many people out there that really would care, really would sit down and listen to what you have to say. And there might be a few people that won't or don't, but you will find somebody that will. And I think it's important that if you are going through that time and you recognize that you're having a tough time, that you really sit down and find somebody to talk to, because there's always going to be somebody there. You just have to look for them sometimes. But really sitting down and telling someone how you feel, and even if you're not a social person, really getting that off your chest can do wonders. I've always been, and I know it's easy for me to say I'm a pretty social person. I've never really had a problem talking to people, but I do know for a fact that when I have had issues and I've talked about them, it's helped me tremendously. And there's no stupid reason to go and talk to somebody or to get help. Like, everybody goes through their own issues, and don't think just because your issue might be different from someone else's, or you might be dealing with something that's not as common as what you're hearing out around you, that it's any less significant. And like I said, really just find somebody to talk to, and it'll help you tremendously get that weight off your chest.
Damn, you speak facts. And with that was my boy Brett Wydra.
Yes, sir. Over here constantly adjusting the mic. Sorry, guys.
No, we've had a couple of difficulties, but definitely not anywhere. Technically, from a technical perspective, everything seems smooth, but it was on my end where I forgot to hit record a couple times. But other than that, I think we're all good. I'm glad that we did this, bro.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me, bro. It's an honor, really.
Oh yeah.
Like, I know we've been talking about it for a while, and to actually get to do it, it's awesome. And I hope someone out there finds some value in this conversation, and even if it's just a laugh, get a good laugh out of it.
No, for sure. And yeah, this is the 3rd episode. I'm gonna try to be doing these at the very least once every 2 weeks. I'm gonna try for once a week. We're just gonna play it by ear, see how it goes. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys tuning into this show. I'm not sure when you'll hear this next, but if you're watching this on YouTube, please do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button. because
turn on them post notifications too.
Hell yeah. And then if you're watching this on Spotify, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music, please download and just follow this show. I'm gonna try to be uploading consistently, and yeah, man, I'm super grateful for you guys. So I hope you guys have a good day and just keep going, man.
Real quick, if I could add one more thing.
Go off, bro.
If you are listening to this podcast right now, you're in at the ground level. This thing's going places, baby. So strap in, because it's gonna be a part of something special.
Yeah, bro. I hope so. And you, my friend, today were the most vulnerable player.
Thank you very much. Cue outro music. I said most vulnerable. Fun companion.